Hello, welcome. My name is Forrest Gottman. I'm the Executive Director of the Evansville Wartime Museum. I'm so happy to have you all out today. I look forward to speaking to you and hoping you enjoy our museum and what all we have to offer. So before I get started, a quick show of hands. Who's all from Evansville? Okay, most of you. Posey County? Newburgh? Ward County? Okay, all right. I'm originally from Posey County. And I was first acquainted with the DAR when I applied for the DAR Good Citizen back in high school. And I think it was, I think it was 2016 that I was able to receive our DAR for Mount Vernon High School, the Good Citizenship Award. So that was so cool, and I really enjoyed getting to know the people who were a part of that organization at that point in time. So. Without further ado, we're going to get started today. Brief synopsis of what I'm going to talk about. So first I'm going to give you just a brief overview of Evansville history. Then we're going to talk about what's new at Evansville Wartime Museum. And then I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself as well. So first up, the history of Evansville. Now you all particularly enjoy learning about Revolutionary War, and that's the focus of your group. Well, the focus of our museum is learning more about the role that Evansville played in World War II. You have a big focus on World War II, as you see in our museum. We do have other exhibits on World War I, Korea, Vietnam, and we want to keep increasing so that we have Revolutionary War represented. So ideas for that are welcome at the end of the talk today. So to set the stage of what Evansville was like just before World War II. Imagine 1941, you're in Evansville, Indiana. We were coming off a really, really hard time. In late 1930s, of course, we had the Great Depression going on. 1937, Evansville, Indiana encountered one of its worst floods it's had in its history. That flood really set back Evansville so much that it exacerbated the Depression, and it lasted a lot longer for Evansville than other areas. This snapshot of 1941 Evansville, you'll see we had about a population of 97,000 people. We only had 18,000 factory jobs. We had high unemployment, low economic morale, and it was so disconcerting that the federal government actually came and looked at Evansville and said, this city is in crisis. So Evansville is actually deemed a city in crisis by the federal government. And what you'll see is in the following years, the story changes. During World War II, Evansville was granted war contracts. These war contracts put Evansville, Indiana, and the surrounding regions on the map. No joke. This changed things so much for the people in the area. You can see our population increased from 97,000 to 150,000. We went from 18,000 factory jobs to 80,000 factory jobs, just in the span of 1 to 2 years. Now, in 1942, we were the highest percent increase in population. And overall, by the time this is all said and done, Evansville, Indiana was the per capita leading producer of war products for World War II. And so, those war plants that were here in town, they weren't war plants before. They could have been built for the war effort, but a lot of times the company would just change what they were doing from making what they were used to making a product for the war. So we had over 30 plants here in Evansville making over 300 products for the war effort. Now one of those companies is Republic Aviation. Republic Aviation started out just as an airplane manufacturer just for World War II Republic P-47 Thunderbolts, just like the one you see back here. That one was made here in Evansville in 1945. It was one of the last ones off the line. The first one off the line was Hoosier Spirit, And that plane that we have here is Hoosier Spirit 2, which is named after that plane. Now, Republic Aviation, like I said, they built that plant just to make the Thunderbolts. After World War II, it was sold to International Harvester, and after that, it was sold to Whirlpool, which is what many people know it as today. If you go down South 41 on your way out, you will see that plane. It's a big blue building, and that's exactly where they made 6,242 Thunderbolts, like someone mentioned earlier. Now, you can see they had nearly 8,300 employees at that factory, which was just incredible at the time. You'll see here in a second, some employers had even more employees. This was also one of the first time that women joined the workforce in mass numbers. So it's an exciting time for women, it's an exciting time for Evansville as a whole. As you can see here, Evansville Shipyard. Evansville Shipyard built the LSTs. LST is a landing ship tank. Now, Evansville, Indiana built the most LSTs out of any city during the war. They built 167 of these football field-sized ships. And you can see here, Evansville Shipyard had 19,200 employees at a single site, which is more than the previous year's total combined. Now, you might be wondering, how do we get all these people into Evansville, and how does it make sense that we can have all these people at one site? Well, if you had a spare bedroom, if you had a guest room, if you had any room in your house, you probably were housing a factory worker with you. A lot of times they would do what's known as hotbeds. Hotbed is when you go to your shift, you go home, you sleep in a bed, you get up and go to your shift, and someone else sleeps in that same bed. So it's still hot. That's why they call it a hotbed. That was pretty common at the shipyard because there were just so many people working at that place. Another company that was huge here in Evansville during World War II and before was Chrysler. Now, Chrysler made Plymouth automobiles before World War II. You'll see one of those today if you wander around the museum, a 1939 Chrysler Plymouth Sedan. It's on our far wall over here. You'll be able to see that today, made here in Evansville. But during World War II, the guy in charge, his name was Capt. Keller. He was approached by a gentleman in D.C., and he said, "Hey, KT, can you make us 1 billion rounds of .45 caliber ammunition?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, don't you want to think about it?" He said, "I don't need to think about it. I've never been able to see 1 billion of anything. I make automobiles. I'm going to do it." And so he didn't make 1 billion. He made 3.25 billion rounds of .45 caliber ammunition. Well, it's billion with a B. And yes, that is, if you stack that end on end at the equator of the Earth, it will go around the Earth 3 times. And that's 96% of all of the .45 caliber ammunition that was used by the United States for World War II, made right here in our backyard. The Chrysler plant was located just off of 41 and Stringtown, and you can, as you go through the museum, you'll see a map display today. You can see where all these companies were. We call these the big 3, but there's so many more companies that I could get into that contribute to the war effort, and you'll see a lot of those today. Chrysler continued, so after the contract for the bullets came to an end, they originally started repackaging bullets. So they went from packaging them in wooden crates to packaging them in a vacuum-sealed metal crate, and you'll see some of those today. After that contract, they were approached by the government again and said, "Hey, we need tanks that can be rebuilt. Can you rebuild tanks for us?" And so Chrysler rebuilt 1,600 Sherman tanks. And I'll get to it in just a second, but you'll see one of those today. Chrysler also rebuilt 4,000 Army training trucks, and they built 800,000 tank grousers, which are overshoes for the tank treads. So that's a brief overview of some of the companies that were participating in Evansville wartime efforts. Now you can see what's new at Evansville Wartime Museum. Show of hands, who's been here before? Great, all right. Well, just within the last couple of months, we have completely redone our layout, mainly to make room for this. This is our Sherman Tank, a 1943 Chrysler, and this was built in Detroit originally, but it is identical to the ones that we would have been reconditioning here in Evansville at Chrysler. Now, I'm a fan of Donut Bank. Anybody a fan of Donut Bank? Okay, the original one on Diamond Avenue, that's where we would run these tanks up and down at a tank depot. So if you know where that's at, that's where a lot of these tank pictures, you'll see some pictures back there of where that Donut Bank would have been located. But that Sherman Tank, that rolled in our doors just about a month or two ago, and it's an incredible addition to our museum. It runs, and the turret can move, and eventually we want to be able to allow people in there. We're still figuring out the logistics of that, but come back soon, and maybe we'll be able to see inside from a platform. That's the goal. Also new at Evansville Wartime Museum, we have our Stimulator Room. So simulators were started at the beginning of the year. If you all want to learn how to fly from an actual pilot instructor, we have those available to you. We are staffed by volunteers who all have their pilot's license, or someone who can help you learn how to fly. So those are really unique, really fun offering. That's a lot of fun. If anyone can land on their first try, I'll give you a sticker, because I could never do it on my first try. Something new too is our brand new layout. Just talked about that. So this is all almost opposite of what it used to look like. Our stage used to be on that side. Displays were moved around. But I was going to take this opportunity just since there's so many of you, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of what the museum has to offer, so that when you tour it yourself, you can know what's going on. So towards our front desk, if you all remember coming in, you go straight to your left, you're going to enter our home front gallery. Now that details several of the businesses and the war plants that are here in Evansville making products for World War II. There's something known as an E Award, an Army, Navy E for Excellence Award. That was given to the top 5% of producers in the nation. If you see a company name and it has a star by it, or several stars, that's how many E awards they received. So it's based on an annual basis. That means that in that year, they were a top 5% producer in the nation for war product. We have several companies throughout our home front display. As you come out of it, you'll go into our hangar displays. Continuation of home front, you'll see Chrysler, you'll see Republic Aviation. Back in the very back here, if everybody looks back, you can see these green doors on this back wall. Those are the original Chrysler doors from that plant. They're 11 feet. And you can see what it would have looked like if you were inside the Chrysler plant looking out. So that's a really unique display back there. Back in the corner, some of you might be able to see it from here, is our Sherman Tank. The Sherman Tank is just, like I mentioned before, just a completely cool piece of history. If you read those signs on there, if you want to take a guided tour, you can, but there's 3-inch armor plating all around on it. It's got a 75 millimeter gun. It's got a 175 gallon gas tank. It goes 120 miles on that, so less than a mile per gallon. Not the most fuel efficient, but it'll get you where you're needing to go. As you come through the museum, you'll also see Hoosier Spirit 2. That's our P-47 Thunderbolt. It's also just a beautiful plane, and it's just a great addition to Evansville. It is actually the state plane of Indiana, and so we're very proud of Hoosier Spirit 2. And there's a platform there. You can see inside. You can see where the pilot would sit. You can see where they would load the machine guns in the wing. As you make your way through, this is a Stearman. It's the training aircraft, this yellow plane right here. Now, the Stearman was a fabric plane compared to a plane that had metal on it. It's actually, you can feel it as metal, or excuse me, it's fabric is what it is. And it was an open cockpit, 2-seater biplane. They made thousands of these for the war effort. This biplane, the Stearman was so unique in that they, once the war was over, they sold a lot of them to farmers, and they used them as crop dusters. So that's what you might recognize it as. As you continue through, there's some World War I exhibits over here. You go through these displays that are directly behind you. You'll see a World War II ambulance, a World War II weapons carrier, Korean War Honor Gallery, Vietnam War Honor Gallery. At the very end, you'll see the weapons of the Axis powers and the weapons of the Allied powers. And then several model displays, so you can see model tanks, model ships, and model planes. As you continue through, you'll go through World War I. In our World War I honor gallery, you'll see Evansville's claim to fame in World War I. James Bethel Gresham, he was the first American killed in action in World War I, and he was from Evansville. And so you'll be able to see his tombstone in there. His mother was the first Gold Star mother also, and it's an incredible piece of history. There's lots of things to see in World War I. Continue on through World War II honor gallery. So that's going to be where all of the things that soldiers brought back home with them from the war effort, that's what those are going to be located. And you can see inside, there's several immaculate things in there. There's a kimono brought back from Imperial Japan. There's Japanese parachutes. There's German flags, German money, German weapons. Also in that room, you'll see our flight simulator room that I mentioned. So if that's where that is at, if you want to see those today. As you continue on through, you'll see our community gallery. That's dedicated to our Red Cross and the USOs. And we have lots of fascinating information in there. Our Red Cross canteen, it was a 20-foot by 30-foot building. And it served 1.6 million people during World War II. Servicemen and women that were coming through on the railroad tracks. It was located right on the railroad tracks. So that's an entirely fascinating gallery in and of itself. And then that's the end of your tour there, but there's so many things that I just glanced over. So if really take your time, enjoy the museum, enjoy what it has to offer. Okay, continuing on. Something else that's fairly new, we do have new hours and days. We're open Thursday through Sunday, noon to 4. So if you ever want to come back, spend more time, if you don't have time today, you're welcome to do that as well. Some recent events we've had, this is a B-25 that had a fly-in here. The B-25, it took rides for people on it. It flew in and out, and then we try to have flights like these every once in a while. You'll see here in a second, we'll have another one. This is coming September 22nd. So September 22nd, mark your calendars, it's a Thursday. We have a B-29. There's only 2 left flying in the world. One of them is Doc and one of them is Fifi. Fifi is the one that's coming here. That's a 141-foot wingspan plane. It's a big plane. We are offering rides on it, but it is sold out, of course. Another plane we have is a B-24 Liberator. We also have a PT-13 Stearman, similar to that plane, and we also have a T-6 Texan. And actually, we have a 5th plane that was just recently added. It was actually President Eisenhower's Air Force One Eichsberg. So that's going to be here too, and that one actually does have rides available on it if you all want to ride. Something I glanced over is our lunch learning shares. I'm trying to figure out if I can go back a slide. That's okay. Our lunch learning shares are on the 1st and 3rd Thursday of the month. So those are educational talks for seniors. If you are a senior or know someone in assisted living, or just anyone who would want to attend this, we'd love to have you. It's the 1st and 3rd Thursday, different talk every time. If you RSVP for that, you can get a free lunch and hear something interesting. And at the end, you're welcome to share also your own experiences or ask questions. Something else new is our staff. So over the summer, we had new interns. They accomplished so much while they were here. We just got a new curator. Her name is McKay Miles. She's studying at the University of Oklahoma for her Master's in Museum Studies. And so she's a really valuable asset to us. Myself, I just started here just about 6 months ago. So I'm still fairly new myself. And this is my role. So my background, I'm originally from Mount Vernon, Indiana. I graduated from the University of Evansville. My degree was in finance and business. And I spent a couple years at my family business in Mount Vernon. And then eventually I came here about 6 months ago. So still fairly new, but learning a lot every day I'm here. My role with the museum is to facilitate the growth, develop and sustain the museum. We have about 70 volunteers that come in and out. You can see one of them. Leslie, raise your hand. Leslie is one of our docents. You can see he's giving a tour right now. We have all kinds of docents. We have front desk volunteers. We have archiving volunteers. We have, if you want to do something here, we'd love to have you. We always need new volunteers, and there's always things that we can find a spot to have you do something interesting in. Another thing is be a bridge, so I give a lot of presentations similar to this. This is a great thing that I'm glad you all are here so that you can learn more about our museum. And our vision for the museum, I say our vision, it's not just mine, it's not just Mike's, it's not just Mark's. Our vision as a whole for the museum, you can see we want to preserve the history. We have about 8,000 items in our archives, collection storage that's up here on this balcony. Those are just priceless pieces of history, and we try to rotate them out on display. We have only about 5 to 10% of our items actually on display. So what all you see today, that's only a fraction. We also want to tell the story, so the purpose of our museum is to enlighten people so that they will never forget how important and significant Evansville, Indiana was in the war effort. Not just World War II, all the wars, but World War II is our focus because that's what Evansville is most significant with. And we also want to teach with enthusiasm, so we have fun ways that people can learn without even knowing they're learning. We have the flight simulators, we have the dose and lead tours, we have amazing displays, we have the P-47. We want people to have a fun experience while they're here, and then also they will learn something if they come here. There's so much to learn. At this point in time, is there any questions from the audience that I can answer? What questions are there about Evansville, wartime history, or how to get involved? Anything? Okay. Good. Okay. Hold on.
Well, I wasn't going to ask anything that important. I was just